all of you about chapter number 12, that is multilingualism. So there are four main contents that we will discuss today. The first one I want to mention is about the underlying meaning and the roots of multilingualism. The second one is we will discuss about the varying contexts and norms that affects multilingualism. And then this now will present the pop educational responses, and the last one is future concerns. For my part, the first one I want to mention to all of you is the meaning and the roots of multilingualism. So there are many definitions of multilingualism. So this is one of the definitions I searched on the net. Yeah. So there are some parts in this one. The first one is the language in multilingualism and the rules of ideologies in understanding what multilingualism is. The second one, I want to discuss about the names and implications underlying the names of multilingualism. The next one is some obstacles or stumbling blocks that can hinder us or affect multilingualism. The next one is the domains of language use, and the last one is retrospective view of multilingualism in the past and present. So the first one is we will discuss about language in multilingualism and the roles of ideologies. So as I have just mentioned, there are many definitions of multilingualism, and this is one of them. So according to Wikipedia, so multilingualism, that is the use of more than one language, that is used by an individual speaker or a group of speakers, right? So in this definition, there is one element I want to notice of, that is language. So maybe you ask me, what is the language? So the answer is here. So according to the Merriam-Webster dictionary, so language is a system of words or signs that people use to express their thoughts and feelings to each other. So for example, it is an example about multilingualism in Northern Ireland, right? So in Northern Ireland, if someone can speak other sports, which is dialect of the sport used in the others in Northern Ireland, and that person can understand the language and knows French, that person is considered multilingual. And it is effect that there are some rules of ideologies for you to understand the definitions of multilingualism. Here are some of them. So the first one is, I want to mention here is the rules of the language, the right language. For example, the first one is some language of varieties like dialects, right? They are not considered legitimate languages, right? But it's first a standard language. So the rules of the language is rather different, right? And the second one is it is the other side of the world. So they think that the standard of varieties of distinction may be not fuzzy. That means the rules of the standard or the language varieties may be somehow the same, right? So although they may contribute to validating a concerted effort to deny the recognition of a language. I will give you an example to clarify this point. So the first, this one. For example, in the Turkish society, so due to the cultural and linguistic simulation, it is one of the ideologies here is for a one nation, one language ideology. So people in Turkey think that it is better to silence the Turkish Turkish is a dialect spoken by people who forgot their mother tongue. So it is in the best interest of Turkish society, right? So as a result, Peru in 2015 concluded that ideology basis can help define whether the language varieties are deemed legitimate or not, right? The second point I want to mention is multilingualism. We want to mention to talk about to have an insight about the names and the implications behind it, right? So here I want to distinguish two terms here, that is multilingualism and multilingualism. So what are the differences between them? Although multilingualism derives from multilingualism, but there is a difference between them, right? So the answer is here, right? The first one I want to mention is about multilingualism, and as you can see, there is an entity that is societal before the word multilingualism, right? So look at these diagrams. Here is some the numbers of languages that someone can possess here, and when you look at this diagram, you can see that there is no relations between the multiple languages here. So in terms of the societal multilingualism, we can come to a conclusion that it is a knowledge of more than one language. They coexist in the society separately, right? How about plurilingualism? And before the word plurilingualism, we have the adjective is individual, right? So it is societal and individual are the two keywords that help you to distinguish the two terms here. So look at this diagram. So it is the same as the first one is, but look at this. Look at these arrows. You can see that there are relationships between the languages, right? So when we talk about individual plurilingualism, we refer to the competence in more than one language. But the difference is there are relationship or interconnected knowledge of multiple languages here, and you use them for the purpose of communication, and in some cases you can switch from one language to another language. For example, I can speak English, but when I meet my friend want to say something about French, something like that, I can switch from English to my French. For example, in English, we can say, well, what's your name? In French, we say, comment allez-vous? Comment vous savez-vous, right? Or you can say, how are you? You can say, quel âge avez-vous, right? These are some cases that you can switch from one language to another language, right? And the purpose for the terms of plurilingualism or multilingualism to come into being is that they want to counter the binary images of monolingualism or bilingualism, or the balance or unbalanced proficiency in languages. I want to clarify this point here. That is, in the past, most of the people were monolingual, and some of them are bilingual. So when you were monolingual, you are very good at that language. But in case you are bilingual, maybe you are good at two languages, but there is no, maybe sometimes there are the words imbalance about the proficiency between the two languages. And the existence of multilingualism or plurilingualism came into being. It is the reason why to avoid such terms, right? And in reality, there are some disagreements about the term, how to call them plurilingualism or multilingualism. For example, plurilingualism in terms of when you refers to geographical regions in Europe, they call them the plurilingualism. But in Canada, the same, or in other places called the multilingualism, and sometimes for specific tribes, other places the people use the term plurilingualism, right? So in short, there are some disagreements here, but in the current society, nowadays people are become more open-ended, more open-minded to soften the boundaries between the language, right? The next one I want to mention is about the stumbling blocks in inclusive multilingual ideologies. So as you can see, in languages there are also some obstacles for someone to master. So the first one is the first one here. We can see that there are unequal power relations between languages. It means that although people are trying to make space for plurilingualism, but they must be qualified in light of unequal power relations between languages. When you have the knowledge of many languages, but one of them or more, one or two of them is more powerful or more influential than others, right? The second one is all language or language varieties are important, equally important, but in the society, in fact, they are on equal value, right? Why so? Because it's affected by many social factors like people's will, or maybe it's the basis of maybe human factors, or maybe it's political or cultural aspects, something like that. And so as a learner, I think that we should be aware of the techniques and the limits of lingualism, and maybe there are language hierarchies and especially language ideologies to see that how powerful the relationships are, and they can help decide whether the languages are legitimate or illegitimate, right? The next part I want to mention is domains of language use. So it is defined by the Council of Europe in 2001. There are 4 domain use here. So there are 4 domain here. So the personal domains, the second one public, next one occupational, and the last one educational. What I want to emphasize here is for each domains of language, with the characteristic or the feature of the word or the setting or the topic that is related to the domain are different. For example, for personal domains, so the people who are involved in the conversations, maybe they are family members or friends. Or how about the place where it takes place? Right? It may be in the home, or maybe somewhere family member meet, or the friends meet, maybe in a cafe. And they are talking about blind or friend matters or individual practices, right? And these are domains I think all of you must have mastery of this. So because of the limited time, I will move to the next one. And the final one of the first part is Rosbach retrospective view of multilingualism in the past and the present. So there are great changes in the past and in the present. So in the past, multilingualism was used as a noun right now. So why was it used as a noun? So when it was used as noun, it refers to the establishment of the social societal establishment of linguistic groups and policies. These policies are that help to manage linguistic diversity for purposes of language policy making or policy making perspectives. About nowadays, okay, in recent years, this term is used as an adjective. And what is the underlying the meaning of multilingualism when it is used as an adjective? It means it focuses on a shape. It emphasizes the emphasis in focus from societal multilingualism, maybe through some country or regional profiles to individual processing or literacy, etc. The second point I want to introduce to all of you is very context and norm that help to define multilingualism or lingualism. The first one, language hierarchies. I will get into in-depth understanding of this part. The first one is language hierarchies. Hierarchies, that means there are the ranks or the levels of language in a system of language, right? I look at this. Talk about in terms of multilingualism or bilingualism. So it has a long history. It has existed about 5,000 years, and it redates monolingualism. It is a fact that I think maybe some of you don't know, because monolingualism happens exists after multilingualism or bilingualism. Yeah. And there are, I want to mention to the word hierarchies here. Also, in the images, Western images of you going to school and finishes your school in France is equating to Europe with elitism. And that helps you to possess multilingual skills, and that is nearly in proximity to high culture, right? And the next one I want to mention here is in fact, there are real connections between languages groups, for the language groups, right? And multilingualism or bilingualism, that is something that help people connect people all over the world who are separated by many languages. How can you imagine we are in a world in which that is so people use so many languages and they can't understand each other, right? What a terrible problem, right? And look at this. This is statistical figures here. It is the top 10 languages in internet, in millions of users in 2007, right? Through these statistical figures by IWS, that means International World Space, they estimated that in 2007, the total number of internet users in the world is about 3.9 million, in which the people who select English to use is about 985 million people. Besides that, other people use Chinese about 771 million, and the rest is 879 million people. So what I want to mention here, what is underlying it? So these figures tell me that. So Instead of just about 25% internet users can understand the information that is spread through the internet. If we use other languages, we can get other 75%, right? So that is it is to say that multilingualism plays an important role in spreading the news information to every corner of the world. And then the next one I want to mention here is multilingualism in complex linguistic context. So, for example, in some areas here, you can see in South Asia today, for example, Nepal, India, or Sri Lanka, right? There are some cases of plurilingualism that are similar to European elite in the past. But most of the individuals belong to folk bilinguals. So I want to distinguish two terms here. That is elite bilingualism and folk bilingualism. What are the difference between them? So the difference between them is when regarding elite bilingualism, that means we want to refer to the trademark of upper class intellectual or educated people in the society, and they have their need for mastering another language, and they choose the language that they learn, right? In contrast, folk bilingualism is the result of the contact of other groups who have to become bilingual involuntarily in order to survive, and they don't have another choice. Or in Europe, most of the non-elite members are monolinguals in the past, and most of the non-elite individuals are plurilingual because they have frequent contact with different indigenous people. Indigenous means the people in the native land here, and the people close to the home. For example, the people work in the home. For example, housekeeper or the one who can meet in the marketplace, close to their home. So in conclusion, it is equally accepted that translingual practices is half role for these iterative practices, or they want also something like they want to negotiate the meanings in their conversation, or it is a way to connect many groups of people speaking the different languages in a speech community, right? And another factor that affects multilingualism is changing attitudes. Before 1960s, right? Most of the children who were born in bilingual families, they were taught to be handicapped. They are sanitized a lot, but after 1960s, right? The situation is different, right? But for example, in Canada, for those who are bilinguals, right? They are proven that they have a more diversified set of mental abilities than monolinguals. And in other parts of learners of different groups, ages, or background across Canada, Switzerland, etc. They are making efforts to rush into an era for the model of bilingual education and then multilingual education. And the next one I want to mention here is also the last one, multilingualism today. So So as we can see that in the current society, there are more individual than individual multilingual than monolingual. I mean, the numbers of the people who are monolingual is the less than the numbers of the people who are multilingual, right? And although there are some endless efforts of politicians to try to make English the only unique language in the world, but it is accepted that all nations in the world are trying to make the world in the view of multilingualism. That means multilingualism is dominating the language nowadays, and develop or make multilingualism more and more developed. That is from some policies, language policies of the nations or of the world, and one of them is maybe it's the migration of the people from one region to another region in a country. I mean internal migration, or the people maybe migrate from one country to another country and make the people how to use many languages in that community. So that makes the rural communities or individuals' rural lingual development more predominant nowadays, right? That is the end of my part. And the next one is Lan Ngọc. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, I will continue with two main contents. The first one is educational responses, and the last one is future concerns of multilingualism. As for the first content, educational responses to multilingualism, there will be three discussions. The first one is from submersion to translanguaging. The second discussion is making multilingual education the norm. And the last one is multilingualism and economics. For the first discussion, there are two models that we need to define and make clear. This is submersion and translanguaging. Both models here refers to the way or the level we use majority or minority language in educational setting of multi-language community. And for the first model, submersion, I will discuss two approaches of this model. The first one is transitional approaches, and the second one is sink or swim, or we can call it submersion approaches. For the first one, transitional approaches, in this approach, the minority language will be used as the teaching mediums in the class until the speakers have enough competence in a majority language. After that, there will be a transition from minority to majority language as mediums of instruction. This approach is very common and popular in North America, especially in the USA. We can see this approach applies a lot in public bilingual schools. The second approach is also the most common approach. In this one, in submersion approach, the students of minority language will enroll in a classroom where teaching is through the mediums of the dominant language. It means that they will, all the subjects will be carried out by the dominant language, not the minority language like the first approach. We can take example of two provinces, Quebec and New Brunswick of Canada. When you study in two provinces here, all the subjects will be taught by French. which is the dominant language of the area. Yes, submersion approach is obviously more prevalent because the minority languages are deemed irrelevant or hindrances to learning the dominant language and academic success. And from this approach, students are discouraged to use and maintain their minority language. Okay. And the second models I will talk about is a translanguaging. This is defined as a process in which multilingual speakers use their languages as an integrated communication system. And it needs to include three dimensions. The first one, this is complex linguistic family dynamics. It means that there are several languages used in the family, more than one. The second dimension is the use of code switching. Yes, and the last one, this is the speaker's comprehensions of their own multilingualism. In educational setting, translanguaging can be controlled by both teachers and students, and it can help to maximize the students' bilingual ability. And we can develop and employ this model via some techniques like that. The first way we can draw on multiple languages and language varieties in readers' theaters. In particular, teachers can use English for their instruction and another language for students' discussion. Yeah, it means that we use more than one language. And the next way we can use this is code machine. It means that you use more than one written code in your written text. And next, we can create multi-modals or multi-language text in the classroom. Yes, in distinction between two models, in submersion, there is one language go after or go under the others. While translanguaging, we use languages, several languages integratedly. Yeah, this is the distinguish between two terms for the first discussion. And I will move to the second one. This is how to make multilingual education the norm. When we mention multilingual education, we mention first language first education. It is used for immigrant speakers from immigrant parents in developed countries. And this educational models is increasingly recognized by a lot of big organizations like TESOL or ETS or British Council, and they mentions the value of the languages that students know as learning resources. And those languages may be their mother tongue or their native language or their first language. Yes. And a vehicle to make multilingualism a norm. This is the using of multilingual language education. These educational programs, aim to provide instruction in a language that children understand in a primary grade. Stuttgart can thus propose three main tenets of MLE. The first one, this is at least 6 years of mother tongue-based instruction, beginning in primary school. The second one is in language in education policies that valorize our mother tongues, especially in the early years. And the last one, the teachers who understand minority language children's mother tongues. These educational programs encounter some obstacles, and I will mention one problem of this in Western countries. This is normalization's efforts in MLE programs in the West. And the fact that there are not many teachers in Western countries can know students' mother tongues, so that is can't adapt the core criteria of MLE. That leads to some problems and make it hard to shift the educator mindset from monolingual to multilingual norms, and also it's hard to provide resources for who want to make a shift. Yes, in the final discussion of the first content, this is the relation between multilingualism and economics. When we talk about the relation between multilingualism and economics, we need to cover the link between language education and socio-economic advantages. And this relation is defined with the term commodity by Heller. From this, we can see the relation of two terms here. Obviously, in the phenomenon that many parents try to put their children into an educational programs, which the mediums refer to the language used, or the use at the mediums refer to higher economics or social status, such as English or Chinese or Spanish. Yeah, they believe that these languages can help to give a better life with more opportunities for jobs or educational path. Yes, this is the relation between multilingualism and economics. And the last contents I will mention, this is the future concerns to multilingualism. Instead of a thorough emphasis on global English, nowadays multilingualism is more and more recognized. Yes, and there are many big companies and organizations like Microsoft or ETS or Porta Foundations. They state that multilingualism as the new global literacy is not worthy. Yes, more and more people concerned about multilingualism, but the features of multilingualism may face some problems, which are defined differently from different views, and I will mention two different problems. The first problems may be the refusal to adapt language in education policies to global realities, like immigration, linguistic diversities, and they may also refuse to provide the necessary support. The refusal may come from different levels, from a group of people, individual or group of people, nations, different nations or different governments. And the second problems of multilingualism does come from the technology. Some people refer to use machine translation rather than focus on multilingual education because they think that it is more easier and it is more convenient. Yes, to sum up, I will mention 3 points that what we need to put in mind about multilingualism. The first one, this is a growing area of interest in applied linguistics. The second one can be discussed among individuals, groups, societies, states, and the digital world by those concerned, like educators, policymakers, so on. And the third one, that it can be designed and contested as well as constructed and practiced. And last but not least, multilingualism can bring social actors and entities to manage similar issues as multilingualism pushes us on. And that's the end of our presentation. We are expecting other questions from you. Thank you for your listening.